And good morning, everyone. It is another edition of Chat CANNA, Thursday, the 29th. We are 48 hours away from a busted Halloween this year. If you saw the Connors last night, at least they figured out how to do it in their house. I am hooked on the Roseanne show, of course, changed over to the Connors because Roseanne had to get on some kind of chemical and made nasty remarks to everybody on social media. But I think they've really picked up the show and are continuing on with it. And so they had their annual Halloween show last night. If you didn't see it, maybe you can catch it on one of the social media channels. Well, we have a special guest with us today. He's down in the Morris area. He is a first-year hemp farmer, and we're going to find out the ups and downs and the frustrations, the joys, the happinesses, and ask him why he decided to get into this crazy industry. We would like to welcome to Chat CANNA today a gentleman named Jeremy Mohr. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Couldn't be better. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you.
No problem.
So the big question, what, were you having a bad day and you said, well, I think I'll be a hemp farmer?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what happened. No, my dad and I had been talking about it, and we'd had a family friend down in Tennessee who had done it successfully the past few years. So we thought we would kind of dip our toe into it and start small. Little did we know, our small was, we were thinking around 2,000 plants. And, after we've gone through the whole process, we think that was probably too much to start off small. So,
yeah, small is an adjective, and if small to one person could be 30 plants, and small to somebody else could be 80 acres. So you just never know.
Exactly. We needed to try to get a frame of reference, and now we've certainly got one. That's for sure.
Well, good. So you had this conversation. You said, let's check it out. What was step 2?
Well, we tried to do as much research as we could, online and visiting different people in Minnesota and talking to people, over the phone or email and stuff like that. And then we relied pretty heavily on like those friends down in Tennessee, and kind of they stepped us through what they do as a process. And, we decided to get some plants from them and put them in the ground. And as far as early June, through the process, we purchased a raised bed plant, raised bed layer that puts the plastic mulch down and drip tape.
Sure.
That seemed to be the way to go for our operations. And we made a water wheel planter. Our whole goal was to try to get into this, not on the extremely cheap side, but not knowing what the outcome was going to be. We didn't want to just go out and purchase all new equipment here and there. So we tried to make do with what we had in certain areas, just not to break the bank, because it's a little bit of an unknown.
Absolutely. You can spend yourself poor. I mean, you can take money that you have and it's gone, and then you got a long time return. So we cut every corner we could. I mean, we were going, I think we got all the way back to when the family was raising cows back in the 60s, getting parts and pieces and doing anything we could to make sure that we were not spending any more money than we had to. So that's absolutely right. So what land did you put it on? What was the land that you set it on?
Yeah, so we had some river bottom land by Morris, Minnesota. It's family land that my grandpa used to farm, and we rent it out, and it's irrigated alongside of some CRP land that we own. So what we did is we took a 3-acre chunk of unirrigated, an unirrigated corner, and that's where we decided to plant everything, right next to a CRP field. And it was corn last year and corn this year again. So probably wouldn't do that again. But
what was the downside to that?
Well, we found some Eurasian hemp borers towards the end of our harvest, which ate some plants, and then we were worried about corn borers. So we've done a lot of research, and it seems like the CRP will hold those borers, and then certainly the land will from having corn in it as well. So
okay.
Yeah. With the
that's of all our guests, that's the first I've heard of that. So
yeah, just some small little tiny little red kind of worms that were boring through some of the plants, and then they had essentially turned some of the buds into the flowers into what they call bud rot.
Yeah.
And you can see those quite clearly. So when we were taking plants, we just skipped those plants and continued to move on to the healthy plants.
Interesting. Okay, so you're saying it's irrigated. So from the irrigated from the above, or?
Yeah, the land has got a center pivot on it, but the land that we chose, the center pivot didn't hit. So we used fertigation. So we we used the drip line under the plastic to try to irrigate everything.
Okay, so you put down plastic and then punched seedlings into the plastic then?
Yeah, we used clones, so they were anywhere from 5-6 inches tall to 18 inches tall when we were putting them in the ground.
Okay. And how did you find them to grow? I mean, our experience was that you sit there and you wait and you wait and you wait and you think you've done everything wrong because nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden one day they go kaboom on you.
Yep, exactly. And then we were frustrated a little bit on the water side. It was such a dry June for us, and we didn't know. We've always heard, and everyone says, don't overwater, don't overwater. And we were trying not to overwater, and we thought maybe did we overwater or what have you. And then all of a sudden, July hits and they're starting to boom up, and we got some rains, and we couldn't control that obviously. So, yeah, the watering was a big challenge, just trying to figure out when to do it.
Sure, and it is. We found that front end watering was good. I mean that we just didn't feel you could put too much water on when they're babies.
Yeah, and I think that's what we found out as well, because the field to the north of us has a center pivot that would just some of the spray would hit some of the plants, so they got a little bit more water, and those turned out to be some of our larger plants that got that a little extra shot of water.
There you go. I mean, but that's been our experience now for 2 years, is that at the beginning, you just obviously don't want them sitting in water, but you just can't seem to not put too much water on right at the beginning. And then, of course, tapering it off as they develop a root system. And toward the end of the season, it seems that they find their own water. They don't really need so much. So,
yeah. I think if we were to do it again, and we probably will, is we'll water more heavily on the front side, like you said, and not be so afraid, because just everything we read, we were too scared to put too much water on.
Oh, absolutely. I totally get that. Well, and he has mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, they might going to be doing it again. So this is good. Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful. So
probably
did you
not 2,000? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, not too. Oh, okay. So you think you're going to get something that you can put your arms around maybe a little better. So, yeah, well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
We're of the philosophy, here is that every plant is kind of named and numbered. I mean, I can show you a picture of one of our babies that, it just was better than every other one. And it was, row 14, plant 36. And I mean, we watched it all year long, and it was the first one to bud, and it had the biggest buds. And we don't know, if ours was pasture land up until 1961, and then it was just sat as grassland. And did a cow pick that particular place for years and years and years to do its duty? Or we have no idea why that particular spot happened to be for that particular plant, but that particular plant just did really, really, really well. Or if it was just the luck of the DNA right there, we don't know. But we had other plants that were right behind it, but that one just it popped out first and just was a great plant. Did you see a lot of variation between your plants out there in the field of the 2000?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We had some that, were, when we were harvesting, that were 3 foot tall, and we had some that were over 6 feet tall, and there was no rhyme or reason to it. Other than there seemed to be a little bit more stability with those ones that got a little bit more water. They seemed to be a little bit more uniform. But for the most part, it was kind of spotty. You'd have a plant that was, you could see it go down in the curve, 6 feet, and then 5.5, 5, 4, and then 3, and there'll be a line of 10 plants at 3, and then it may jump back up, and there's no rhyme or reason. In theory, it should have been getting the same, nutrients, et cetera, that we're feeding it anyway, and the same amount of water. So, and I don't know if that's just genetics or luck of the draw or what,
But because you were feeding it through the tubes, so.
Yeah, we'd feed it through the tubes, or we'd do a foliar spray with fish emulsion as well, up until flowering. So.
Wow. So yeah, and you felt that was really you felt control of that, so it was uniform. So
yeah.
So well,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was certainly interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Do you feel you had absolutely different kind of plants out in the field, or were they all of the same kind of origin?
They were all of the same origin. It's just, getting clones, like I said, some were 5 inches, 6 inches tall when I plunked them in the ground, and some were, over a foot tall, and we didn't know if that would affect anything, and I don't think it really did.
Okay.
Some of our smaller plants actually grew up to be kind of big, and some of the ones that started off massive, were kind of medium sized. So
So that didn't the 5 inches or a foot when you put them in didn't seem to be the forebearer of anything at all.
no, I would say after about a month and a half, you couldn't tell, which ones started out
Sure.
bigger or not, at
Sure.
least on our
Yeah.
field. So,
Well, awesome. Awesome. So where are they now? You told me that most of what you think you're going to harvest, you've got in. Are they upside down now? How are
yeah,
they hanging? What's a
yeah,
completely different meaning to that
yeah,
phrase. So how are they?
yeah. So we rented a barn, and we decided to hang the whole plants upside down. What we've experimented with, and what I think we should have done from the beginning, is clip some of the colas off first if we wanted to choose to do the smokable route on some of those larger ones. But yeah, we're hanging them upside down, and we've actually been lucked out pretty good in having good humidity levels and make sure there's plenty of airflow in the barn. So they'll hang there for anywhere from a minimum of 5 days for us, and some have sat in there for longer, and then we bring them home into our heated shop, and let them, get acclimated to that, because it's about a 30-40 degree difference with controlled humidity. And then we start the stripping process. And once we've got them stripped, if they need to be dried down more, we'll put them in racks. We've yet to have to do that, actually. They've dried down a lot easier on our side than what we expected. So once they're in the kind of the more temperature controlled shop, we get them stripped and put into biomass bags, the big super sacks, and
Mm-hmm.
ready for processing and more testing, et cetera, and making sure the CBD's there and all that fun stuff.
Of course, of course. And I heard you brought some up to our friends in Fargo, the Adams testing
Yep.
lab. So you'll be getting those results back here in a little while, and we'll see just what's out there in the field this year for your first try. That'll be really neat.
Yeah. We have some, we got a bunch of snow on our field, so there's still plants out there. If you walk by, they look okay, and they don't smell terrible. They just don't smell as fresh as, the
Yeah,
plants did 2 weeks
yeah.
ago. So we wanted to get a kind of a baseline on whether it's worth going out there trying to salvage some of those, bigger plants or branches off of those plants, or if it's worth it or not,
Sure,
'Cause
sure. Or even just the main stem. Maybe you just go out and harvest the main stems on them. So what was your
yeah,
variety? What did you buy? What's out there?
uh, cherry wine is what we started with. So we just went with just cherry wine. We thought,
Hmm.
that's what our friends, kind of our mentors down in Tennessee used, and, kind of a good stable, from what I understand anyway. I'm certainly not an expert. We're learning every day, but kind of, what everyone is,
Yes.
kind of
Yeah,
started
sure.
out on, and it should somewhat manageable THC levels. That was another big thing. That's something you can't really control unless you're testing for it, on a every other day or weekly basis. And we just, we passed our state test, which was good, and then got into harvesting right away. So
Wonderful, wonderful. When they came out, of course, they crossed the field back and forth, took about 30 samples,
yeah,
and then they drove away, and you're going, "Oh, this better be good."
yeah, exactly. It was, we put in all this work all summer, and the money and the blood, sweat, and tears, and then that one piece of paper email you get can dash all of your hopes in a second. So
When it came in the mail, did you pass it back? You open it. No, you open it. No, you open it. To see
yeah,
how it turned
yeah,
out. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No,
we
that
got
was
it.
quite a.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, it was quite. Yeah, we got an email and opened it up right away, and showed my dad. So we've got our Fit for Commerce certificate. So now we can you know do what we need to do with it, and hopefully find make it in some oil, and find a buyer or what have you. We haven't quite decided on that process yet.
Sure,
So
sure. Well, yeah, and that's the thing is, to get it to the next state, and the decisions are still out yet on how long it can be in the next state. How long can it sit in oil, and still hold its hold what it has and how good it is. So these are all
yeah,
things that the industry is learning yet as things are going forward. And
yeah,
it's an exciting time to be in the industry and learn what's going on, and of course, chatting with friends. It was more fun last year in the fact that the state of Minnesota put out a list of every farmer in the whole state that was in the game in any way, shape, or form. And now
sure,
this year, of course, I understand because of privacy and things like that, you have to ask to be put on the list. So it went from about 700 people down to about 60 people.
Sure.
But it was fun last year because we could say, oh, 40 miles away, I know him, and you get on the phone and you chat, and it's a good time. And we can't do that this year because we just kind of, you don't know which of your neighbors unless you're out driving around, and you got to do a little deduction and a little sleuthing to find out who's in it. And I'm sad about that. It's too bad that we couldn't have a list so we can talk about people. And now with, of course, being locked in with the situation that's going on, it's even worse because we're stuck down to being on the phones or on some kind of internet stuff and doing that. So what's the history of your land there? Your dad's a farmer and has been for years. And
no, it was more of my grandpa farmed, and then my dad really didn't get into that. So it's some river bottom land, and he had retired, in the late '90s and such. So we just kept the land in the family and just rented it out.
Sure.
The CRP and hunting land and such. And then we just decided to re-rent 3 acres back that we had rented out and try it. So I
So you're getting back in the game, basically. You're following the age-old family tradition. So, and what's your family history? Was your grandfather, but maybe your great-grandfather that came to America, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they came, I think, in the late 1800s, 1890s, settled in Stevens County, Minnesota, and they had all farmed all the way up. Like I said, it probably would have been a century farm, by the time my grandpa retired. So
sure, absolutely. I'm sure the big event for them, back, say, like with my family, get down to the state fair and there was no internet. There hardly was, Successful Farming magazine if they could afford it. And probably the only reason they could afford it was because they did double use when they used it out in the toilet, Well, we got to get something, so we might as well order Successful Farming, for a nickel an episode or so. And but other than that, that was getting down to the county fairs, and then of course the state fair was the way to find out new farming practices and maybe look for a new bull that you could bring home and try and improve the herd a little bit and do all those kind of things. And I just wish, Sheldon Cooper on The Big Bang he wants to go into the future. I think it would be so cool to zip back about 100 years and hang out at the state fair or the county fair and the gatherings and see what farming was about. Like when the threshing machine came in to your farm and all of the people that put the work involved to get the crop harvested for the few days that you had your threshing machine on your place. To me, that would be the real exciting adventure of what's happened here. Some of our farmland got broke in 1890. Where I happen to be is 1919. So last year was our 100-year here.
Nice.
And so and so all of the things that have happened, and now those first trees that were planted there, big cottonwoods, are at the end of their life. They're starting to break down. So it is a change of that cottonwood generation.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then if you got to take them down, plant something, and maybe it's an oak or another cottonwood, and another 100 years from now, someone can deal with it.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be amazing? Of course, my great grandfather had 8 sons, and my grandfather had 7 sons and a daughter. But my dad had 1 son, and I have 1 son. So the farming is getting narrower and narrower, and now in the family, the land, my dad made it on, I was just figuring that out. We had 480 acres that we owned, but about 1,000 acres, including what we rented. But now our land is within 6,600 acres of land that 2 cousins are farming. And I'm sure come another 20 years, assuming that their sons are going to pick it up, that's going to be an even bigger, machine, if you think of it as a machine, the whole game. So what's, even as I don't know how it is down where you live, but as I drive around and with my son, I'm saying there used to be a big barn there and a house, and that particular Catholic family, and I only say that because Lutherans and Catholics back then, it was kind of like 2 sides of the road,
Sure.
but and all those girls babysat us, by the way. That's the joke. I now one of the gals is yet at the monastery here, and we run into each other once in a while and we reminisce because she and her sisters were my and my sister's babysitters. But their farm now is completely farmed over. But when I was a kid, there was a barn that could handle 50 cattle and a farmhouse that held 14 kids. And there's the only evidence of it is one cottonwood tree. That's the last evidence. So, the world is changing, and now we got into hemp. This is so awesome that the hemp has come around again and the things that we can do with it. Are you thinking you're going to stay in the CBD world as you move forward, or are you going to try and...
I think so. I think for now, at least probably next year, I think there's a little bit more infrastructure built up in the area as far as processing plants for CBD. Like a decortication plant, and I haven't really researched for fiber or for seed quite yet. As I understand it, with the seed, you need to have the drying capabilities to be able to get that dried down, rapidly. So that's not where we're at right now, but possibly in the future. They haven't really made advancements in the U.S. in hemp like decortication for 80 years, and if you look to what like China and those guys are doing, they wouldn't pass the U.S. EPA test on the chemicals and such they use.
We got to figure that out in a better and more American safe way.
Yep. So but it'll be interesting to see as more people get into it. I think you've got to be a little bit more worried about pollination. We were lucky that we'd walked our fields and such, but didn't have any pollination happen with us. Being clones, we were all female plants and didn't get pollinated. But I've heard horror stories of all people that's just a fact of life, that they're going to get pollinated. And as it continues to grow, there'll be some technologies around that, or I don't know.
It's going to be an issue. That's right. Where we were, with our crop last year outside, most everything we did this year was inside because we took an old barn and we foamed it. So we are now year-round capable. Matter of fact, I'm just today, Margaret from the Minnesota Department of, the Agriculture Department, the hemp, I'm going to be doing the first license for next year. She's asked me to go through and see if I can make the system break. And so I'm going to, here after the show, I'm going to go on and do the first application, and subject to change, of course, because she just wants me to go in and like hit every field and try and make it break. So they get ready. Because last year, and maybe you did it, or maybe you did it by hand, because they had a problem with the online application. So this year we're getting ahead of it, and she called me up and asked me to be a tester for it. So still in the IT business, even though I'm in the hemp business.
Okay.
So it's going to be good, but that's actually happening today here a little bit later. But up here, we think that it's going to start moving more and more to the industrial hemp, the hemp that can be decorticated, take the bark off or the silk around the outside and send that to, into the stream for jeans or paper, that the herd that's inside the stock will get moved over to the making of wood and hempcrete and all the things that it can be. And we see that we're going to probably, as farther north you go, the higher the chance that it's going to start moving more into a field crop where the combines are going to come, or whatever the equivalent machine is going to be, that's going to be going across the field rather than the 3 acres, the 5 acres, or the kind of stuff that where you guys can do that in a nice little, like you said, a river bottom, a nice little place where you can protect it and take care of it. So I think we're going to see a geographic division as the years go by, where you guys farther south can grow those plants where the giant colas are just dripping with CBD and the other CBs that we're going to start finding in there. As opposed to we're going to industrialize on this end real fast up here. So.
Yeah, and I think Canada, like I said, I'm pretty novice at this, but I think Canada's still got a pretty decent hemp operation up there, if I remember correctly.
Unbelievable. I'm going to have a guest on that's north of Edmonton, believe it or not. Not just the Canadian line, not just Calgary. Then you go way north, you get to Edmonton. They're north of Edmonton.
Wow.
And they have a co-op up there of farmers that, and they do all the baling. You asked about, is it baled? They bring the whole plant into their co-op baled. And that's where they take it apart and get the 4 streams: seeds, pharma, the silk of the after they decorticate it, and then the herd that's inside. But they are big up there, and they are looking for farmers. They will bring you the seed, and they will come and pick up the bales. That's how anxious they are for more acres up there.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It'll be interesting. I'm sure some of that'll trickle down into some of the larger farming operations here and, throughout the Midwest. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where for up here in the bigger farming areas, North Dakota especially, that's probably what it's got to head to. I mean, the farmers are not of the mind, to kind of like walk the field and talk to each plant and name and number it. So that's what they're asking. They're saying, when can when you've got it so that I can put it across 80 acres, let's talk. So I think that's where it's going to go. So we're going to see this division, because certainly CBD is not letting up. The demand for it is getting higher. Now we're finding CBG and CBN and all these other things. So we're going to find 2 worlds going on here, and it's just going to be exciting. Well, I really want to thank you for coming on today. Let's pop your email on here so it will be forever attached to the show. I hope that you don't mind that people get a hold of you and can ask you questions and see where Jeremy
I'll probably ask them more.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll probably ask them more questions more questions than they ask me. It's still learning every day, So
that's what we do. That's what we do. It's a learning experience, and this is the government's fault because they held it off for 70 years. So there's 70 years of experimentation and learning and forward thinking and all of this to do, and it's exciting to have you along as a team member. We hope that next spring, as you get I imagine you'll do clones again or something like that. We hope that you'll come on the show and let's talk about it again and your plans, and maybe we'll get a live feed from out in the field and we'll see what you're actually planting and doing that. So.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time today. Thank you.
Hey, stay in touch, and good luck and good hemping, and hunker down for the winter here, and we'll see where this takes us. Jeremy Mohr, thank you so much for being on the show today. This has been great.
All right. Thank you, John. Yep.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you. That is our show today. Veronica, of course, will probably join us next week, and we will continue on having guests and learning a lot more about where this hemp thing is taking us. It's an exciting time to be in the agriculture business and to be learning about this new product. So Monday, we will have a Have You Heard on Monday and Wednesday, of course, and big shows on Tuesday and Thursday. Thanks very much, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy Halloween. Please be safe. All I can say is please, please, please be safe. And we will look forward to seeing you next week.